Welcome to The Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Thank you for choosing to join into this week's episode. Now, this week's episode, well, it's a fantastic episode, one that has actually been highly requested, but by absolute chance, a good old friend of mine, Kylie, who I used to work with many moons ago, has come in and got in touch with me and asked if she could come in and be a hair model for us. She has got amazing hair that definitely needs some TLC. She's cut it herself. She hasn't coloured it for yonks, but that's all good. You know, we don't mind stuff like that here at The Life of Hair. We're only here to help where it is right now. So welcome, Kylie. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Haven't had it coloured for ages. Wanting a revamp or a total redo.
Please.
So we'll start with the colour and then we'll move on to the cut. I'm sure you don't want a pixie cut, so we'll start with the colour. And go from there. Show us your inspo pictures.
So, this is what you created years ago on my hair.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So we had
Good
that
stuff.
lovely ombre.
Yeah, ombre vibes.
But what I'm thinking now is, I'm thinking more like this. I don't know how she would have created, is that highlights?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, nice honey colours. And you can see there's like still quite a lot of colour in the hair, but there's kind of contrast and separation in the colours there. And like a couple of different tones going through. Now, because Kylie's got no colour in her hair, one of the fantastic things is here we can utilise two colours to create different tones and textures in her hair. Now, she had got colour in her hair previously, we would be more limited to what we can do, but she's given us a pretty good blank canvas, so it's winner chicken dinner as far as I'm concerned in this particular instance. So yeah, we can create that multi-tonal effect that you can see on the screen now by utilising two different shades, like a high lift and then maybe a bleach, you know, to create two different, and that'll be better on the condition as well, you know, which is obviously something that's super important. Okay, so what we've done is we've mixed up two colours. We've got a blue powder bleach plus 20 volume, and then we've got a level 8 with a blue ash tone, and obviously we're going to be lifting, and that's with 20 volume as well, and we're going to be lifting this dark hair, so we're going to expose a lot of undertone, a lot of warmth, a lot of orange. Now the pictures are beigey, kind of caramelly, so we don't want to kill off all that warmth, but we won't kill off all that warmth even if we use an ash blue, just because of how far we need to lift the hair. So we'll still be left with that kind of beigey caramelly vibe. Once it's lifted, and of course that is something that when we're thinking about lifting and toning simultaneously, very difficult to do as a whole, because you know once the product works, generally how products work is they come in, they lift the hair, they break down the natural colour, and then they deposit the new colour into the hair. But obviously the amount of colour that you're getting into that hair won't generally counteract. So if you want completely cool results, you will need to obviously bleach and tone. But if you don't mind a little bit of warmth, like we don't mind a little bit of warmth in this particular instance, we can carry on with the technique in its you know, the form of which we're going to do it, where we're going to lift and tone simultaneously, but we do need more lift than we can possibly get with just using tint, so therefore we have got the bleach with us as well. Right then, so super simple pre-section for this one. What we're going to do is we're going to take a section that runs from Kylie's nose, tip of Kylie's nose, all the way through the centre top. Just pop your head down for me, like just like that, centre parting. And then we're going to go, there's lots of spinning, Kylie, okay? You're going to spun a really So we're going to go from the high point of the head down towards the back of the ear, just like that. That's your first section, one quadrant if you want. I know my friends in America call them quadrants. Over here we call it a hot cross bun, which is a Easter treat. Baked raisin bread. A hot cross bun, God knows why it's called that. And then we're going to go straight down the centre back. So this technique is definitely a fun one because it's really super simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take a section of hair that is about couple of inches in depth roughly. We don't have to take any particular section style, diagonal, horizontal. In this particular instance we're going to use horizontal sections. For me that is the easiest to do, and it's not going to make this technique look or feel any better because of just the sheer nature of what we're going to do with the technique. So we're going to pull the hair out straightish, stretch it out in our fingers, and then we're going to weave from kind of 3/4 of the way down the head, down the hair rather, and we're going to separate out the hair top to bottom. So we've got 3 strands at the top here, and if we pull that out, what we want to be able to do is see daylight, or definitely be able to see in between each of the 3 strands. So you can just see on the screen there, got these kind of gaps in our section. Okay, so these 3 will be our lighter sections, and this one will be our darker section. The reason this one will be our darker section is because there's just a lot more hair in this section, because there's all this baby hair. We're only going to paint roughly 2/3 of the way up the hair anyway. We don't want to go too high up the head, because we'll just end up being kind of in the root area with it, and then it will look like all kind of a global colour that's 2 shades, whereas we're trying to create a highlight and depth separation and depth and texture in the hair. Now the picture that Kylie showed me, all of the ends are coloured, you know, so we will go through all of the ends. There isn't any kind of natural left out in between. We might leave some slither sections in between just for a little bit of contrast, because if you want something to look light, you want both colours kind of visible within the section. Okay, so what we're going to do, come in with our tint, apply our tint. We can just apply it any old way really. We don't have to do any kind of magical blending technique. All we need to do is thin out the saturation at the point we want it to transition into the darker hair. But apart from that, we are happy days. It is super quick. So we just take that piece of hair, twizzle it up and leave it just like that. We take the top section just like this. We come in with our pre-lightener, bleach, whatever you want to call it. I don't really like to sugarcoat what it is what it is. And then we apply that. Blend it again at the point at which we want it to transition. Just like that. And again, just wind it up, pop it next to it. Now what we can do with the lighter pieces is wrap a little bit of foil around them. We could do that with all of the pieces. It depends what you want it to do actually. We'll talk about that a little bit. If we cover the hair with any kind of cover, whether it be cling film, foil, the tint as well, we will get some more performance out of the product, so it will lift lighter, quicker, faster, all that jazz. Now this kind of hair, this texture of very curly hair, tends to be quite porous, so it does lift quickly anyway. So we do need to bear that in mind. We do need to work quite quickly when we're doing a technique like this. We can't really kind of dilly-dally with it, and that's why these techniques work so well, because we're going up the head pretty fast. We've got another 2.5 inch section. It doesn't have to be the perfect set of sections you've ever taken, because just by the sheer nature of this kind of hair. Now the other thing you can do, instead of taking weaves through the hair, is get 3 fingers like that and just drop them in the hair like so, and then that splits the hair into 4, as if you were going to do a braid, for example. So let me see if you can see that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we could do is, if we wanted an even amount of blonde and even amount of brown in the hair, then we could do that. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, as I mentioned, we're going to do a little slither section of hair that we're going to leave for a little bit of dark contrast. So, you know, I think with these techniques actually, the kind of, if you get too neat with them, they start to lose their way a little bit. So you do want to be a little bit more free and use your hands a little bit and kind of get going with the techniques. If you go in with the 4 fingers into the hair, then you get 5 sections. So I can see that there just on the left hand side. So we're going to do 5 sections. I think I want kind of more of the lighter in this hair, so I'm going to go with the 3 sections as my light, and then the 2 sections underneath as my dark. So with our triangle section of hair at the top here, remember we do want to take out a little bit of contrast, so we're just going to use my finger to take out a slither of hair through the bottom here, leave that dark, then come in just with 3 fingers to create 4 pieces of hair. So we're going to take our light sections first, just like so, pick those up, put the lightener onto the ends, always try and work up towards your root area. It's kind of really important. It saves you like putting too much product in a place where you didn't want it, so I'd rather work it through and decide whether I want to take it higher rather than like slapping it halfway through the middle of the head and then thinking, you know what I wanted to do with that section? I didn't want it quite so high. It's really important that we kind of go with that and remember that about when we're doing a technique where we've got especially very curly hair textures like this. We've got to remember that this hair is going to shrink right back to the root area, and so therefore it will look kind of the opposite to when we do like a balayage, for instance, and we did like a tease on the roots, and then it ends up being further down the head because we've teased some of the hair back. This is the polar opposite. This will end up closer to the root. Make sure you wipe your hands in between each of the sections so the lightener doesn't end up onto the dark pieces. Apply our tint in exactly the same way as we did previously on all of our subsequent sections. Work our way through. Twizzle it up. Wrap it up. Now we're going to layer it in a way that we're going to try and get some more lift and more volume, so I'm just going to work with that centre parting. However, if this hair was going to be worn in one particular parting of any description, then I would very much avoid putting it into any other parting than the parting it was going to be worn in. So take the section horizontally across the side, just like so. Again, we want a section that's approximately kind of 2.5 inches deep. And we're not going to worry about these baby hairs around the face because there's no way we're going to get that high and that close to the scalp, and we're going to keep a nice shadow around the face because one of the things we want to remember is that when you've got warmer skin tones and then you're going to put a kind of beigey colour in the hair, the skin in the hair can end up looking very akin, so you do need the depth at the root to help the contrast. So if anybody's wondering why Kylie's got her eyes down, she's not asleep, she's just reading. She looks asleep, doesn't she? There's a very still head and she's asleep.
My small eyes.
So again, come up to the root area. I'm going to use my fingers again. I showed you on that first section with the weaves, but I just prefer using my fingers. I know not everybody does, but it is what it is. 3 fingers into the hair at the root area, push down through the hair. That creates 4 strands, and then we need to decide which ones are the light ones and which ones are the dark ones. I'm going to go with the light one on the outside edge. Dark, light, dark, just like that. This first section I'll do all the way through to the bottom edge, but then on my subsequent sections, remember, I'll leave that little slither of dark hair in there just to create a little bit of contrast and separation. So in with my lightener, roughly 50% of the way up the hair, approximately at this point, and then come in, disperse that product. Remember, at the point at which it's going to transition, I'm just going to move it up the hair using the hand. Love this technique. It is just so simple, so quick to do. Come in again, halfway through our section, just work it through our saturation, nudge up the colour, and then wrap it up. Beautiful. So this is a section that's not enormous, so we're probably going to do this, take a slither of hair off the bottom and then assess what's left. So we'll just leave that little bit of darkness there, a little bit more maybe, just a touch of hair, there we go. We might want to split it in 2, just see what that looks like. Could be worth splitting in 2. Really assess, what you're going to do with this hair. Don't just go in willy-nilly. I'm quite happy, I think, to just create 5 sections here. 1, 2, 2 in the middle here. So we're going to do these 2 as our darker blonde colour, and then we're going to do these bottom 3 as our lighter blonde colour. So we're going to come in with our tint on this section. And what you want to do is really work it in, really make sure that you get it worked into the hair. Take our front section, middle section, Try not to pick up the definition, the piece that you've left out for definition below. On our back section, come in. We're now going in with our bleach. Really make sure that the saturation of the hair is really nice and thick. Always go saturation first and then blend. Easier that way in my book. Some people do it differently. And then I'll do the opposite side because it will repeat itself exactly the same on the opposite side. So as you can see, this has been on now for about 45 minutes and we are up to a level 8. I don't want it too light, but a level 9 would be good, so we will leave it on for a little bit longer. But also the tint that we put in between as well, probably could do with that being a little bit lighter too, so we'll leave that for a little bit longer as well. So this is where we're at with the lift. It has gone to a level 9 pale yellow, and we can just see there next to some of the highlights that we've got those kind of softer, more caramelly pieces. So we're going to rinse just the back in a second. The front's not quite there yet, but we'll also tone this down a little bit just so that it's a little bit softer than we're seeing it right now. That we've kind of created, this textured vibe with the colour, and the darker pieces we've left in there are adding contrast and separation. The lighter pieces, the more caramelly pieces, are also adding kind of different tones and different depths. And then we've got those blonder pieces in there. So we've created real movement and texture and with the colour. Remember, we were only doing it about 2/3 of the way up the hair, but if we look into the root area, it only looks like it's kind of 2.5 inches off the roots in some areas. So it is really important that we remember that hair is going to recoil back, and it's going to create a completely different shape. So this is the colour result from our overall finished look. This is it cut. So if you want to see this haircut being done, please tune in next week. Thank you again, Kylie, for being my model this week, and hopefully we'll see you again when your colour's grown out or you're sick of being blonde or whatever. And you can come back down and we'll fix your hair again.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Don't forget, for content like this, hit the subscribe button. Don't chat to me down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. And I'll see you again for another episode of The Life of Hair very soon.